Hello and welcome to the fourth edition of How Big Is Your God? And this came about because I was really trying to find out a little bit more, or a lot more, about this God that I follow. And what I realized about myself was that I was putting God in a little box. And God is so much bigger than the box that I want to put him in. He has so much more to offer than we even realize. The prayer of Jabez says, Lord, enlarge my territories. And what I really hope in my prayer is that you and I both get a bigger picture of really who God is. So this next installment, we're going to learn about the name Yahweh. Yahweh is a really, really cool name. One of the first times that it was mentioned in the Bible is when the Lord approached Moses. I say approached Moses, but when he called Moses out of a burning bush and he told Moses, go to the Pharaoh and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. Well, Moses was about an 80-year-old man. He was old. He's living in the desert. He's a shepherd. He said, who am I? Right? Who am I that they're going to listen to me? By the way, who should I tell them sent me? And what God said was, tell them I am sent you. And he said, tell them that Yahweh, the God of Isaac and Abraham and Jacob, sent me. In there, you see that he uses Yahweh and I am so interchangeably. And what's cool about that, like that I am, like why is I am such a big thing? Like, why did he say that? What I love about I am is that he didn't say I did. He didn't say I was. He didn't say I'm going to. He said I am, right? I did is past tense. I'm going to is future. And while God is eternal, he said I am, meaning that he is active and he is living. And that's what he's told Moses, and that's the way that he was in the Old Testament. But that is also true of God today. So coming back to Yahweh, Yahweh was so precious and so personal a name of God that the Israelites decided not to use it anymore. They said that it was too holy and too precious of a name for just anybody to use. And it was preserved or reserved only for the priests that worked in the temple. They were the only ones that could even utter the name Yahweh. Well, what ended up happening was and there's some dates that are mixed, right? But either 80, 70 or in the early 300s or somewhere around there, the temple was destroyed. And what happened was the name Yahweh was no longer used. They replaced it with Adonai. And so for decades, for centuries, for a really, really long time, the name Yahweh was no longer uttered. Even to the point where today, we're really not even sure if that's how we should be saying it. That's just kind of how we figured out and what we did. So the letters YHWH are actually the letters that go into that, the English letters that go into that. And what happened is that when the Bible was being translated for the Western world, they added some vowels so that we could have a pronunciation. So we now have Yahweh. There's another pronunciation or another written form of this where they not instead of not YHWH, it was JHWH. And in some pronunciations, that was Jehovah. So you will often hear or see Jehovah and Yahweh being used so interchangeably. Now back to that name Yahweh. If we see that when the Westerners did a translation, instead of putting Yahweh in some cases, they just put the Lord. So a lot of times when we see the Lord in our Bibles, it is really covering up one of those names and one of these attributes that we're sharing, that we're learning in this series, and particularly Jehovah. So in some translations of the Bible, Jehovah or Yahweh is actually used, and it's there over almost 7,000 times. In every book of the Bible, I want to get this right, it appears in every book of the Old Testament except for Esther, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Songs. So what does this mean? Why? Why is this important? Well, we have a God that so wanted to know us that he made himself available to us. He said, here I am. Yahweh. And I want you to know me so much so that I'm going to use my name in this book that I left for you. I'm going to use it almost 7,000 times. So that name Yahweh. Now, as a newer Christian in my early years as a Christian, I'd never heard the name Yahweh. I'd never heard the name Jehovah. And even as I'm reading the Bible, I don't see those very often. So in this Western world, we're kind of missing a little bit of the bigger picture of just who God is. I pray that you learn to connect with Yahweh, with Jehovah. And this whole exercise is just done so that we can enlarge our territories, so we can get closer to God, so we can get closer to knowing who God really is, his true character, his true love for us, his true love for you. Thank you so much for joining.